Sirens cut through the night like a blade. On deck, sailors throw down charts as a destroyer swings a new course across a black ribbon of sea. Engines thumping, navigation lights reflected in anxious faces. Somewhere inland, the sky blooms with tracer lines. Missiles carving arcs over a fragile front. Anti-air batteries stuttering to life. A commander whispers into a headset, multiple launches. Bearing 090. For a few seconds the world narrows to sound and signal. Radar blips, encrypted tones, the muffled click of a war room door closing. This is not a headline. It's a heartbeat. It's the moment everyone trained to read danger tries to decode. Was that a calibrated deterrent, a revenge strike, or a misfired escalation? Iran, Israel, the United States. Three capitals trading messages and threats while networks of proxies and regional navies test the lines that hold a wider war at bay. Hezbollah fires from Lebanon. Houthis strike at shipping lanes in the Red Sea. Covert teams move inside Syria and Iraq. Each action alone could be contained. Each misread can be the spark. In the tense mix there are tiny, technical things we watch like omens. A carrier group rerouted, a civilian port closed, a sanction tightened, an ambassador recalled, an anti-ship missile test flagged on commercial AIS feeds. Diplomats call each other in the small hours. We need de-escalation. One says, voice gravelly with exhaustion. Not now, answers another. Silence loaded with consequence. That human friction, fatigue, pride, mistranslation, is how many wars begin. Tonight we map the flashpoints that could turn this axis into a regional war or drag in global powers. We'll break down likely scenarios and the worst-case chain reactions. Proxy waves, naval clashes, economic shockwaves as oil routes choke, and the faint but terrifying possibility of strategic weapons entering the calculus. But first, what scares you most? A wider war, an energy crisis, economic collapse, strategic weapons, or total disinformation? Tell us in the comments. If you want clear, calm updates as events unfold, like the video and subscribe, will be here. Up next, the frontline map, where these pieces sit, who can strike who, and what single misstep could cascade everything into open conflict. The sirens are still echoing as we slip inside a cramped command tent on the edge of a desert base. Fluorescent lights humming, maps taped to walls stained with coffee. A commander points at a smear on a satellite image and says, almost quietly, if that convoy gets hit, we won't be able to control what happens next. You can feel the room inhale, a handful of seconds where everyone measures the cost of action against the cost of restraint. That is the thin thread between a contained retaliation and a cascade of responses that stitch together disparate fronts into a single, uncontrollable war. Across the map, the same logic repeats in different keys. A Hezbollah rocket swarm aimed at a border town. A Houthi missile launched into the Red Sea to disrupt a commercial lane. An Israeli strike deep inside Syria that kills a figure tied to Tehran. Each event is small in isolation. A patrol boat damaged, a drone shot down, an advisor killed, but each is also a signal. Analysts watch those signals like weather forecasters watch pressure systems. Naval task groups repositioning, AIS transponders going dark, air defense batteries spinning up, embassies issuing emergency advisories, stock traders pricing in a spike in Brent crude. The rhetoric ratchets up. 2. Terse one-liners on Twitter. Veto threats in diplomatic cables. Sanctions packages drafted overnight. Miscalculation, not design, is often the match. On the ground, civilians trade stories about another blackout. A convoy delayed. A market closed early. In a port city, an old fisherman folds his hands and says, "We never imagined the sea would be a battlefield." As container cranes silhouette against a sky streaked with contrails. In a Pentagon conference room, a junior officer asks, "Do we have the legal cover to strike back?" And the pause answers everything about uncertainty and risk. These are the indicators that turn analysts silent with focus or suddenly loud with alarm. They are the breadcrumbs that tell you whether this stays a dangerous regional spiral or begins a sequence of linked strikes that could pull outside powers in. What scares you most as you listen? Wider war, energy shock, or mistaken escalation? If this raised questions, like and subscribe to follow the next segment, where we map the most likely and the worst-case scenarios that keep planners up at night. The night is a mechanical heartbeat. A sonar ping, A bridge officer's whisper. The map light tracing a coastline where every buoy could be a mine. On the destroyer's bridge, the captain rubs his jaw and says, "Course change, 3 degrees starboard. Keep stations." Below, sailors slide into life vests as a distant flash blooms over the horizon. In Tel Aviv, a married couple huddle in a stairwell as sirens ripple through the neighborhood. On a dim screen, someone scrolls through a video of a launch over Lebanon. Elsewhere, a Houthi operations room glows with green monitor light. A young commander barking coordinates. A translator replying, "Be sure of your target." That mix of professional calm and private fear is the texture of escalation. Analysts call this a layered crisis. Small incidents stacking until one misstep becomes the fuse. A single stray missile, an intercepted drone, a commercial tanker hit in the Red Sea. Any of those can trigger a cycle of retaliation. The dangerous part is how separate theaters now talk to each other. A strike in Syria leads to a reprisal from Hezbollah on Israel. Israel responds with Iranian-linked targets in Iraq. The U.S. steps up naval patrols and defensive strikes to protect shipping lanes. Each actor calibrates risk differently. What looks proportional to one looks existential to another. The signals the world is watching are mundane and ominous. Extra destroyers rerouting, air defense batteries moved forward, diplomats pulled out of capitals, emergency UN briefings, sudden freezes on financial channels. The rhetoric shifts from warning to ultimatum. "We will not allow a red line to be crossed," a spokesman says on camera, and across the region, commanders parse whether that line is political theater or a rule of engagement. This is how miscalculation seeds broader war. Ambiguity, compressed timelines, proxied actors with local agendas, and leaders who must demonstrate resolve without a reliable backstop. The next segment will map the concrete flashpoints, Hezbollah's launch zones, Houthi corridors, Syrian airbases, and choke points in the Gulf and Red Sea, and walk through both the likely and worst-case trajectories. If this breakdown is helping you follow, a quick like keeps this coverage coming. What scares you most? A regional conflagration, an economic shock, strategic weapons, or a wave of disinformation? Subscribe to stay with us as we trace the maps that decide the next move. The sirens are still ringing in my head as we move deeper into what could become the central chapter of this crisis. Picture a war room at night. Dim monitors, a map with red dots flickering, a junior officer whispering, "They're launching from inland," while an older commander taps his chin and says nothing, just watches trajectories bloom across the screen. Those moments of silence, that small gap between detection and decision, are where miscalculation lives. Start with the obvious flashpoints. In Lebanon, Hezbollah keeps its aim trained on northern Israel, ready to convert political signals into salvos. In Yemen, Houthi swarms have learned how to threaten commercial shipping and choke the Red Sea. Inside Iraq and Syria, Iranian-backed militias practice deniable strikes that can be blamed on shadow commanders. At sea, a single destroyer rerouting to avoid a minefield becomes a target if it crosses paths with a small fast-attack boat or an anti-ship missile launch. Each front feeds the others. A Houthi strike that halts a tanker can prompt Israeli strikes on Iranian-linked convoys, which in turn elicits retaliatory missile launches from proxy groups. A cascade. What drags the U.S. from cover to center stage is rarely a grand strategy. It's personnel killed, a base hit, or an ally begging for direct help. The calculus flips when American lives or critical shipping lanes are under attack. Sanctions and diplomacy strain, rhetoric ratchets up, and the next step looks smaller than it is. Analysts I spoke with watch very specific signals now. Sudden naval redeployments, unexplained air patrols, increased missile readiness, emergency evacuations at embassies, and diplomats being recalled. They watch economic indicators too. A spike in oil futures, shipping insurance rates, and port delays can force national capitals into faster decisions. This is a war of moves and countermoves where plausible deniability and misread intent are weapons in themselves. If one theater ignites badly enough, it won't stay localized. Logistics, airspace denial, and allied obligations can pull other actors in. What happens next depends on seconds, not weeks. A mistaken interception, a damaged tanker, or a foreign airstrike claimed as self-defense could redefine the conflict. Do you want to know the precise chain of events analysts fear most, and the timeline that turns escalation into all-out regional war? If this worries you, hit like and stick around. Next, we map that worst-case sequence step by step. Night falls, and the sirens don't stop. A thin, high keening that threads through apartment blocks and naval decks alike. On the bridge of a U.S. destroyer rerouting through the Gulf, the captain murmurs into his headset, "All hands, stations. Keep comms tight." Down in a Damascus safe house, a field commander checks missiles on a crate and tells his deputy, "If we strike deep, they'll answer." We know that. Those lines, ordinary, human, utterly consequential, are the ones that can make a regional scrape become something far worse. Imagine the map like a live organism. Missile arcs flashing from Lebanon into northern Israel, fast boats shadowing commercial convoys in the Red Sea, a barrage of drones over southern Yemen that sets container stacks on fire, and interceptors lighting up the sky above Iraqi bases. Each flash is a decision point. Is that suicide drone a calculated hit by Tehran's proxies, or a misidentified civilian UAV that triggers a disproportionate response? Analysts watch for patterns. Unusual tanker reroutes, air defense radars that suddenly track dozens of low-altitude threats, encrypted diplomatic cables shifting tone from de-escalate to protect assets. The math of escalation is cruelly simple. A direct strike on an American base or naval vessel crosses the line that pulls Washington into kinetic response. An intense, coordinated Hezbollah salvo hitting Israeli urban centers could force Israel to retaliate inside Lebanon and Syria, dragging Iranian proxies into open confrontation. Even economic pressure, severe sanctions that choke Iranian revenue, can provoke asymmetric attacks on shipping and energy infrastructure, sending oil prices skyward and international markets into panic. This is the dangerous gray where miscalculation lives. Commanders under stress, translated intelligence, and political leaders writing red lines they may not want to enforce. Fear, too, drives decisions. A civilian in Haifa who hears rockets and sees night sky glow is as pivotal as a general in a bunker. Their choices ripple outward. What signs should you watch? Naval task groups converging, sustained air alerts, diplomatic envoys suddenly canceling visits, and strikes that cross national thresholds. Which of those scares you most? A wider war, an energy shock, or a catastrophic strike against civilians? Tell us below. Stay with us. Next, we map the specific triggers that could force the United States directly into the fight, and why a single misstep could be the spark that lights a much larger fire. Night falls and the sirens keep coming back in my head. A wail across cities, a red tracer line over a dark sea, the sudden jolt of a destroyer changing course under a low cloud of tension. We started this with images. Missiles arcing like angry comets, drones like buzzing warnings, convoys rerouted, diplomats on late-night calls. Now the question remains. Will all this burn out along the fault lines, or leap into a conflagration that redraws borders and economies alike? The honest answer is both. There are plausible, contained scenarios where pressure finds small release valves, covert strikes, targeted sanctions, proxy tit-for-tats that stop short of direct U.S.-Iran or U.S.-Israel confrontation. Then there are the cascading scenarios analysts fear most. A misread warning, a friendly fire strike, a blockade in the Red Sea that chokes shipping and spikes oil prices, or a coordinated barrage from Lebanon and Yemen that overwhelms layered defenses. One mistake, one poorly timed escalation, and separate theaters, Syrian skies, Iraqi towns, Gulf shipping lanes, stitched together into a systemic crisis. Watch the signals. Not just the headlines, but the movements. A carrier group shifting 100 miles, air defense units going on permanent alert, an ambassador suddenly pulled out, a sanctions package drafted overnight. Listen to rhetoric that softens then hardens. Notice investment flows and insurance premiums rising before the markets do. These are the small, cold lights that tell you whether deterrence is holding or fraying. Emotionally, this is raw. Families under sirens, captains rerouting through mind waters, traders pricing in fear. It's a mosaic of human cost and geopolitical chess. What scares you most, a wider war, an energy shock, strategic weapons used, or total information chaos? Tell us in the comments, we read them. If you want concise, Calm updates as events unfold and clear explanations of why a move in Damascus matters for your pension. Stay with us. Hit like if this helped you see the stakes and subscribe quietly, because when the next alert sounds, being informed can make the difference between panic and preparation.